We want to check our tire pressure. So we're going to check the tire pressure and the tread depth. Tread depth in the tires needs to be 6/32 on our drive tires. Tire pressure is 100 pounds per square inch on our tire pressure. Also on these, we've got your tandems, and you're checking the inner and outer wall on all of your tires, checking for abrasions, bulges, and cuts. Inside here, we want to make sure that all of our lug nuts are fastened down. We want to check all of our valve stem caps are in place. We're looking for any leakage on our outer seal, making sure that the seals aren't leaking themselves. All the lug nuts are secure, everything's in place. Rim, no damage, no cracks. Checking our air bladders, making sure that the airbags are inflated, they're not damaged. And then we're going to check back here on the second set of spring mounts, checking our brake chambers, airline slack adjusters, and also our shock absorber in the back, and making sure everything's secured. Our brakes on the drives, we've got dust covers, so we really can't see the brake shoes and the brake drums. So the dust covers do prevent us from looking at those very close. We want to check the coupling area of the trailer and tractor. So we're looking at our handle, making sure our handle is in all the way. Looking at the platform and the apron of the trailer, making sure that we have no gap between the fifth wheel and the apron. Checking our slider lock pins, making sure the slider lock pins are out, locked in position. Stop blocks, front and back, making sure that they're secure. Pivot pin, making sure the pivot pin's in place, cotter pin's inside of the pivot pin itself. All right, what we want to check is we want to get back here and check our kingpin and our lock jaws on our fifth wheel. So we're going to use a flashlight and inspect that. Shining your flashlight up in there, check that kingpin itself, check the lockjaw, making sure the lockjaw is shut completely across the kingpin so that it can't come undone by itself. Check, make sure our mud flaps are good, both splash guards. Checking our tail lights on our tractor itself, making sure the tail lights and the four-ways are working on the tractor. We want to check our body panels on our trailer, checking the top and the bottom rails. We're looking for any damage, any rivets that might be missing. Landing gear, we're going to check the landing gear. Make sure all the braces and brackets in the foot, everything's secure, no cracks, nothing's loose. On back down through. Checking our reflective tape, make sure it's good, making sure our body panels are good. Get back here to the light itself, make sure the light's working as far as the four ways, making sure the light's good. Checking the flooring and the bracket support underneath. Make sure everything's good. No broken boards, no loose brackets. Back here we want to check our airlines, make sure they're not hanging down too low, they're supported, making sure the airlines themselves aren't worn, aren't cracked, aren't leaking. Checking our brake chambers. Over here, airlines and the air tanks. We want to make sure everything fastened down, no broken, worn airlines, air tanks are good. Checking between the tires for any obstructions. Checking my spring mounts, my springs. My springs are all in line, no cracks, spring mounts are secure. My tandem handle's in, my tandem lock pins are out, making sure those are good. All right, next thing we're going to look at, we're going to check all of our tires and rims and lug nuts. We're making sure that all our lug nuts are in place, valve stem caps are good, making sure the outer seal's good as well as the inner seal when I look in between there. making sure the tire pressure, tires are inflated. Tires on these, 100 pounds of pressure. Tread depth on these is 330 seconds. So we're making sure our tread depth is good, the inflation is good, no wearing on the inside of the wall or the outside, abrasions, bulges, and cuts. Mud flap, making sure the mud flap's secure, checking all of our lights coming around. Back of the trailer, we're checking everything back here, looking down underneath. I can see a lot more of my brake chambers, slack adjusters, brakes, my shoes, my brake drums. Check everything back here as well. You get a better look at the rear tandems, making sure all the slack adjusters are good, brake chambers, springs, spring mounts, U-bolts. Everything seems to be good there. Back of the trailer, we want to check our doors. Looking at our latches, our hinges, making sure everything's secure, checking the sealing around the door, making sure it's good. Checking our DOT bumper, making sure it's fastened down, everything's secure, checking all of our lights, making sure our brake lights, our four-ways, our headlights or our tail lights are working. Checking our license plate, making sure it's in place, making sure our lights are good, making sure the license plate light is working. If you've got a trailer with a load, making sure the seal is in place and your lock is in place as well. Get over to this side, we check our tandems and everything, our slack adjusters, spring mounts, tires, making sure they're inflated, 100 pounds of pressure, 330 seconds on the rims, checking our lugs, lug nuts, inner, outer seals, making sure everything's good. Making sure our body panels, side of the trailer, our lights are working. Coming down, making sure our landing gear, our structures, everything's fastened down, no broken loose pieces on there. This side of the truck, everything's pretty much the same that we'll be checking. One of the things that's different on this side of the truck is going to be your exhaust system. So we want to examine that exhaust, making sure we've got no leaks in our exhaust system. Checking the exhaust itself coming up, checking our elbow, making sure nothing's broken free or leaking or cracked. We've got a flex pipe that we have to check. That flex pipe, a lot of times that's where things come loose or break or crack or rot out. We've got to make sure those are good. We want to use our flashlight, shining it all the way up the exhaust. As I look all the way up the exhaust towards the engine, I'm looking for any soot, any black streaks along that exhaust. If we see any black streaks or soot, that means there's a leak up there and it's time to get it fixed, because otherwise that could be going up inside the cab. And we don't want that exhaust up inside the cab. All right, we always want to make sure we've got our fuses and our triangles in our truck in case of an emergency breakdown, something like that. We've got our fuses, which are our road flares, and we've got our triangles. The triangles, we want to make sure that we've got 3 triangles, making sure they're all workable, so when we stick them out behind our tractor, when we break down, it's a working triangle. You have approximately 10 minutes to get your triangle set up before you do anything else. Make sure you get the triangles out if you are broken down along the roadside. Oops. All right. Checking our lights, sleeper berth, side of sleeper berth glass. Checking our skirting, making sure everything's good. Check the steps, making sure everything's good. Checking our mirrors, everything's fastened down. We've got the mirrors in place. The mirrors are clean. Checking the door hinges, latches on the door, making sure the window's working fine. Once we've got that completed, we can shut the hood. Lower the hood down and latch it. Coming around to the front of the truck, checking our license plate, our bumper, checking the headlights, looking at the windshield itself, making sure the windshield's good, looking at our clearance light, making sure they're all working. We want to check the inside portion, making sure our fire extinguisher is fastened down, secured, making sure that the fire extinguisher is a working fire extinguisher in the green, pin is in place, checking our permit book, making sure the permit book is all up to date, and we've got everything in here that we need for a permit book. We want to check our clutch. We want to check the free play, making sure we've got no more than that 2 to 3 inches. Check our brake pedal, checking our accelerator pedal, make sure everything's free. Next thing we'll be doing is the in-cab portion of the truck, checking all the in-cab stuff. When you're climbing in and out of the vehicle, we always want to make sure we've got 3 points of contact climbing in. First thing we're going to do is we're going to cancel our 4-ways, cancel our brake lights. We're going to check our turn signal indicators to make sure everything's working. What we're going to do now is turn the key to the on position without starting the truck. We're going to check our high beam indicator, making sure the high beam indicator is working as well. Next, take the truck out of gear, turn off your headlights, start the truck up. Going to be checking all of our gauges, our oil pressure, water, our volts, making sure everything's working fine, checking our air gauges, fuel gauge, checking our tach, making sure everything's working, checking our blower, make sure that that's working for our heat and our air. Check the steering wheel free play, making sure that it's good, checking the shift lever itself is secure. We want to check our horns, our city horn and our air horn. Checking our wipers, making sure that our wipers work fine. Making sure the washer's working with the wipers. Okay. Everything seems to be working fine on the truck, so now we're ready to hit the road. Okay, that concludes our pre-trip. Pre-trip should be done daily, so that's time to hit the road after we get the pre-trip done, making sure we're roadworthy before we hit the road.